Look, I got myself a new ring light. Too blinding? It looks a little bit, look. Have you ever asked yourself, what if when things finally begin to shift for you and you are able to let go of old pain, it would take away the very thing that makes you, you? Have you ever thought that? That if you let go of the struggle, the mess, that internal misery, that something will be missing. That your creativity, your depth, your rawness might just poof, disappear. And then who would you be when you feel free and light? And will your work be as powerful? I think this is a very interesting belief, isn't it? A belief that your best work comes from your darkest places. And if you heal those places, who will you be? What will you do? Will you become just lazy, superficial, uninteresting? I would like to share my thoughts about it with you. But before I do, I have to do that thing because it does help. Hit subscribe. Of course, you don't have to, obviously. But if you're still here and you find my topics interesting and you are questioning right now your entire creative existence, you might as well. And if we haven't met yet, I'm Christine. I help people to get unstuck so they can create and live, feel comfortable in their own skin, and just get on with it. Less overthinking, more doing. If that sounds like it could be interesting for you, just stick around and become part of this little universe here. And now, back to our creative existential crisis that we're having. You might see it everywhere, and you might hear it everywhere. It kind of became its own cliche, I find. The idea that struggle fuels art, that suffering makes it real and powerful and really raw. We have all heard it. Hemingway drank himself into oblivion. Frida Kahlo painted through unbearable pain. Nina Simone poured her heartbreak into every note. Brilliantly, I think. Some of the most celebrated creatives carried really deep wounds, and we love the idea that their pain somehow fed their genius. But most of the time, it doesn't really end well, does it? So what happens when you start lifting your weight instead from your shoulders? When the internal chaos gets quieter and when you get more grounded and content? Ooh. What if you lose the thing that you think made you special? I have had clients, successful, wildly creative people who were terrified of this. Several of them told me, I don't think I'd be interesting if I wasn't constantly wrestling with myself. I think my work would lose its magic when I'm not feeling that pain any longer. And if you've ever felt like that and thought that this is a good enough reason to stay where you are and just press repeat on your old buttons, let me tell you, you are certainly not alone. In general, I think we don't fear healing or relief, rather. We fear what comes after. Our minds are not comfortable with that big unknown out there. We would always prefer the familiar, no matter how destructive and unhealthy for us it is. And when we have integrated that belief that we are only interesting when we drag our pain around to the point that we make it who we are even less willing to give that up. So if you have built your identity around being the tortured artist, if you have spent years believing that your edge comes from your wounds, then becoming lighter and freer can feel like you're erasing yourself. I went through this myself long time ago. For some reason, I thought that tortured soul lifestyle would also spice up my work. It didn't. I just felt the unpleasantness of the suffering. But till this day, I keep my black turtleneck. And I still love melancholy, dark music, nostalgic moments, deep connections. Those moments of craving something without really knowing what it is. But it comes from a different place. It doesn't come anymore from a place of my own unresolved pain, but from my shelves full of memories. I can take them out like a book I want to read and dive into that different world and feel it and experience something touching. But I have a distance to that suffering part. And it still has this poetic and romantic thing about it. Oh, but well, I'm moving away from the topic. So when we identify ourselves with our painful story, we might be afraid not just to lose our creativity, but to lose ourselves or what we think makes us us. And yes, that makes perfect sense. As I said, our brain loves patterns. It clings to what it knows. And if struggle has been part of your process for years, of course your brain will fight to keep it. Change is always scary, even if it's a good change. But let us ask a different question. If your creativity really depended on your pain, then why does your best work just pop out when you're in flow, when you're feeling free, when you're in it? Because when you're in pain, you only feel pain. Pain takes always priority. So why do ideas hit when you are in motion, in curiosity, in play, when you're actually not in pain? And why do so many artists who have healed or are healing keep making incredible work? I just think of Nick Cave, for example, who had to go through unimaginable pain, but he didn't stay there. He uses his experiences from a different place now. At least that's what I think. So can I safely say that you moving forward and growing out of that old familiar place won't erase anything? Yes, I think I can. Simply because you don't lose your experiences. You don't forget the things that you have been through. You don't lose your insights, your perspectives, your way of seeing the world. What happens instead is you expand. You gain the ability to see your pain instead of drowning in it. And that means you get more control over your creativity because it's not tied to whether you're suffering or not. And actually, I think many artists get even better when they heal because now they are no longer performing their pain for approval. They are coming from a place of growth, distance, perspective. They are not just creating to validate their suffering. They are free to explore what really moves them. So imagine this. You still have access to everything you have felt, everything you have lived, but now you can shape it. Instead of being at the mercy of your emotions, you can place a completely new focus on them. The depth doesn't go anywhere. The fire doesn't die. The edge, the rawness doesn't disappear. It's all there in you. And if anything, you can use it better for your work and gain more. So instead of asking, what if healing makes me lose my creativity? It's much better to ask, what if healing makes me better than ever, more interesting, gives me more depth, more perspectives, more different kinds of fields that I can explore and play in. I have been through so much, and I know I'm through it. That's a plus. So if this topic hit home, you need to hear what's coming next, because healing doesn't always feel like healing. Sometimes it feels worse before it feels better. Sad, but true. And if you have ever started the process and thought, wait, why do I feel like I'm falling apart? Let us talk about it, because this will be coming next in part 2. And I hope to see you there. Thank you for spending time with me today. And yes, have a lovely day. Bye for now.